Hello everyone, welcome to the channel here of MeteoMark Weather. It's great to have you here. We're talking about newly Hurricane Milton here. Upgraded to a hurricane. This is on its way to become a major hurricane, potentially as high as a Category 4 now. We have a lot of new information to bring into you here, and what could be impacts here for Florida and surrounding areas. And unfortunately, we may be talking about another storm on its heels. Let's get into it. First, looking at the infrared satellite view, you can see that explosion of showers and thunderstorms right around the center today, really intensifying rapidly. And here we go with the infrared satellite view, three-dimensional satellite view of Hurricane Milton spinning in the southwestern and western Gulf of Mexico here. This is a powerful storm, that explosion of showers and thunderstorms right around the center of circulation. As you can see, the National Hurricane Center takes us up towards a Category 4 now with 145-mile-per-hour winds. All right, so if we take a look at simulated infrared here on our hurricane model, and then I'll show you the modeling. Look at this. Becoming a very well-defined storm here. This is 2 p.m. on Monday afternoon, so very ominous looking, the classic donut-shaped here, buzzsaw look. And there it is, passing just north of the Yucatan Peninsula. We can get like a three-dimensional view of this as well. This looks very menacing here across much of the Gulf. So this is going to be what's heading towards Florida, unfortunately. Let's take a look and see what it's going to look like, the structure of this storm. Really nice to get a picture of what this storm could look like on satellite. And there it is, right here at 2 p.m. on October 9th. It's almost right in line here with Cape Coral, Naples, up to Sarasota. Look at this. Yeah, there's that buzzsaw coming in right around. And this is really what could be encouraging. There is some dry air being entrained on the south side of this, so this could help weaken this slightly just around or prior to landfall as it moves in just north of Tampa St Petersburg on this model run here. And if we take a look at the hurricane model here, and I'll show you all the models, including the Euro and the GFS. As we go out here in time, the next 24 to 36 hours, you can see Milton, now a hurricane, is going to start to come pretty close to the northern Yucatan Peninsula. So this model's taking it much further south of guidance initially here and deepening it greatly over some very warm waters. It's going to be some outer bands here from Cancun all the way down to, Merida here. So this is going to get kind of interesting here for the Yucatan Peninsula. Definitely, if you're in the Cancun area, you're going to feel the outer effects from the storm. So as we head through the 8th here into the 9th, this is going to deepen rapidly, 942 millibars here, increasing. And then we start to see this storm start to move a little bit north of guidance here on our hurricane model. There's going to be a trough up here, and that's going to help draw this system up to the northeast Gulf. And here it is, 940 millibars. You can see there's going to be some tremendous feeder bands coming in on the southeast side. So Naples, Cape Coral, Northport, Sarasota, Tampa, St. Petersburg area. This is where you're going to really get on the act, and unfortunately, the ground is already going to be saturated from the moisture and the heavy rain that's already been falling. So as we get into the 10th here at 2 a.m., so we're getting into Thursday morning here, this is where things really start to go downhill. You can see our hurricane model bringing this in north of guidance, 944 millibars. This still puts Tampa on the southeast I quadrant here, which is the worst part coming in at this direction. So a lot of water surge will be piling up here into Tampa St. Petersburg area. Even southward to Sarasota, Northport, Cape Coral, you're still going to have surge problems here on the south and east side. One good thing that does start to happen here, and I'll show you this on the dry air analysis, we do start to get dry air and training on the south side once this does start to make landfall. And our hurricane model's taking it north, just north of Tampa St. Petersburg area. And then eventually, as you can see, landfall's right around, here it is. It's going to be late morning, 11 a.m. on Thursday morning. So we got, this is going to be later in the week. So this thing's got a lot of time to strengthen, and that's what I'm really concerned about. Here it is exiting, getting ready to exit off the coast near Daytona Beach. And many of you have been asking about impacts up here into Georgia, the Panhandle of Florida, the Carolinas. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of heavy rain and wind. So impacts will be greatly felt. This is going to be a large circulation. And you can see as we head throughout the 11th into the 12th, the hurricane model's wanting to hug the coast up here to the Outer Banks and the Carolinas. So unfortunately, this could mean more rain for for you guys up here. That's a development we're going to have to keep a close watch on. And before we continue with more coverage here on Hurricane Milton, don't forget, if you made it this far in the video and you like it, smash that like button, everyone. It really does help. Question or comment down below. I'd love to read your questions or comments. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe bell notification button so you're alerted with all my future weather video updates. Let's continue. So looking at our European model run here, let's put this into motion. Our newest model run, bringing even further south of guidance here towards the northern Yucatan coast. So this is a development we'll have to keep an eye on. Tropical storm warnings are in effect. It might have to be upgraded to hurricane warnings here. Bring in some outer bands here from Merida here to Cancun. So look at this. As this storm ramps up, it's coming around and up this trough here. So this trough is drawing it up to the northeast. You can see even on the European model. But look at the latest European model is still south of guidance here, right in line with Cape Coral. By 8 a.m. on October 9th. So we're getting into Wednesday morning here. So as we continue out here in time, there's landfall. The Euro is bringing it in just slightly south of Tampa St Petersburg area. So that's a new development here. We'll have to see if that trend continues, but it's a very large circulation. So here it is exiting Florida here at 5 a.m. on October 10th, and then moving out to sea here as an extra tropical low. So there it is. European model keeping this a little bit further to the south. You see some dry air in training on the south side of this as well. This would still be a bad hit for Tampa St Petersburg area, but even more so for Northport, Cape Coral, down to Naples here. This would not be good. And then tremendous rain and wind on the north side of the system as it pushes to the north and to the east here, and eventually more towards the east here on the European model. All right, so looking at our GFS model here as we go out in here in time, GFS really taking this to the northern coastline, the outer core of it, just near the Yucatan Peninsula as we go out into Monday at 11 p.m. So look at that. It's going to be really close. So you might feel some impacts here on the northern Yucatan Peninsula. We're going well south of guidance here on the GFS initially as well. But look at it. As the storm strengthens rapidly, Category 3, potentially Category 4, look at how it grows in size here. This is October 9th at 8 a.m. So we're getting into Wednesday morning here. So this is where things really start to come together here. Unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of rainfall. Gusty wind well out ahead of the system, and there it is, the GFS taking it further north, just like the hurricane model is, just north of Tampa. This would put the southern eye wall into Tampa St Petersburg again, with heavier rains further north. You can also see the precipitation cutting off here into parts of South Florida, so that's the dry air moving in. But here on the northern side, those heavy rains and gusty winds continue. Look how it moves just north of Orlando. So there's the landfall point here. It's going to be right around, let's see if I can slow this down, 5 p.m. on October 9th. This is kind of strange because this is a lot faster solution here than the hurricane model. So the GFS really starts to accelerate this. And look at that, minimal impacts, very quick impacts further north because the precipitation shield really starts to cut off by Thursday morning. And look at it, it's all the way off the coast and it's out to sea by 2 a.m. on the 11th. And I just wanted to show you this on the GFS. You know, this is a bit further out. This is into next weekend. And I know we're dealing with one hurricane, but look at this. Look at coming out of the Western Caribbean here, strengthening to a major hurricane. This could come very close to South Florida, and look at it goes through the Bahamas. This would be really bad. So this is a development we're going to keep an eye on as well. And intensity forecast models here for Milton, there are more models putting this at Category 4. There's actually even a few putting this at Category 5. So I think we're moving out of the Category 3 camp and into the Category 4 camp here. This is going to be a development we're going to need to watch because this could be very detrimental to the west coast of Florida. All right, so taking a look at our upper level vorticity here, see what's steering this system. You can essentially see the trough on the northern side of the system. It's helping pull it up here eventually to the northeast, into the northeastern Gulf, right into the west coast of Florida, at or just slightly north on this run of Tampa St Petersburg area. And there it is being captured by that trough. as it's pushed off towards the East Coast. And thankfully, it looks like it's going to go out to sea with just brushing the Carolinas here with some impacts. So hopefully we can keep the core off. And then our next system, there it is. There's that energy coming together into the northwestern Caribbean. We'll watch it for you. Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Yucatan Peninsula. It's going to be close for you guys, potentially crossing over Cuba into the Bahamas as you see a big deepening trough. This could really save the Gulf of Mexico. This could keep it from going into the Gulf, which would be great news. But unfortunately, it's going to come very close to South Florida. It's all about timing with this trough. Stay tuned. This thing could get pretty ugly as well. So getting into our GFS model here with dry air analysis, you can see it's all across the Gulf Coast states up here with the exception for Florida and South Georgia. So as we continue in time, there's our GFS taking it very close to the Yucatan. You can see there's a very hospitable environment here. The dry air doesn't start to wrap around. In fact, it still stays away from the system on Wednesday. And the GFS doesn't start to wrap around dry air on the southern end of this until about Thursday, early Thursday morning. So, yeah, the GFS keeping this very strong as it crosses Florida and then eventually becoming extra tropical on the other side of Florida as dry air and trains in. Now, here's that next system. Unfortunately, let's get that out of the way there. Here we go. So there it is, our next system across the Caribbean. Unfortunately, following right on the heels here of Milton, this one looks to get caught up in that trough. This is October 15th, so we got plenty of time to watch this, but this could be a hurricane as well. We'll have to keep an eye on this. And here we go here on the European run. Very hospitable environment. Dry air does start to wrap in on the European run here October 9th. You can see it just up to landfall there on the south and west side in particular, but keeping this a hurricane up to landfall. Taking a look at wind shear, very low wind shear for this system, especially as it remains on the southern envelope here, well north of the trough, and all this wind shear up here in the Gulf. Now watch this, as it does get pulled to the northeast, there will be increasing wind shear on the northern end of this system right around landfall. So it is possible this thing could weaken from, say, a Category 4 back down to a 3 just right around landfall. But keep in mind, it will have the surge. You know, once it becomes a Category 4 and comes in, it will have the surge of a Category 4. And here we go with the GFS. Wind shear, almost non-existent for this thing through Wednesday. It's not until, you know, landfall, right around landfall, you start to get into that wind shear, and that's going to be that conversion over to extra tropical. Now, as we continue with our next system, unfortunately, we're talking about this already. There's very little wind shear here into the northwestern Caribbean and southeast of Florida. So once again, this getting pushed out by the trough, but this would have plenty of time and energy to develop as well with very minimal wind shear. All right, so getting into Florida here with our European model, look at well out ahead. This is just through Tuesday. Look at those rainfall amounts on the order of 4 to 8 inches, and then we just add more insult to injury here as we get rainfall totals approaching a foot in many locations here. There it is. Tampa up to Daytona Beach, Sarasota, Palm Bay, these areas could be well over 7, 8, 9, as much as a foot of rain. And if you take a look at the GFS model here as well, look at those rainfall totals going a bit further north, but you get the idea. Still a solid 4 to 6 inches with locally higher amounts, 10 to 12 inches. So getting into the Western Caribbean here, most of that's across the parts of the northern Yucatan up here. You could see easily 80 to 125 millimeters, getting up towards 2.5 to as much as 5 inches. But look at this. That next tropical wave that we'll be looking at, it's going to add a lot of rainfall here. Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Cuba here. You could easily see 100 to as much as 125 millimeters, some areas as much as 150 millimeters. You could be looking at rainfall totals on the order of 3.5 to as much as 6 inches. And I want to make note, that's not for this week. Look at this. This is actually into the following week. So this is right around October 14th, 15th, and 16th. That's with that next tropical wave we're going to be watching in the Western Caribbean. And looking into the Eastern Caribbean and the Bahamas here, what is going on? We have that big tropical wave moving through come late week here across Trinidad, Tobago, up to Grenada here. it's going to be a wet one. And look at that. That's going to be 70 to as much as 100 millimeters, easily up towards 2.5, 3.5 inches, and that heads westward. So up here through the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Haiti, you'll see lesser amounts, 40 to as much as 60 millimeters. That'll get you up towards about 3/4 to 1.25 inches. So for the rest of the tropics here on our European model, we are watching that wave move through the Lesser Antilles here as we approach the 10th, 9th, 10th, and 11th here. Trinidad, Tobago, Grenada. That moves to the northwest here as we head towards the 11th. Here it is. Look at this big ball of moisture here from Jamaica on southward to Costa Rica, and even as far north as the South American coastline here. That continues to move northwestward here. Tremendous rains for Jamaica, the Cayman Islands. We'll get into those rainfall amounts momentarily here. But look at this. Yeah, this is going to keep going towards the north and to the west here. This is going to be quite a bit in the way of action here. And there's the European model trying to make it into the southeastern Gulf here. That's a development we'll have to keep an eye on. This is the 14th, by the way, of October. And there it is. It's starting to get picked up by that trough. So more towards the Bahamas and Cuba and South Florida here. But yeah, the European not developing it as much as the GFS, so that's something we'll have to keep a close watch on here. But stormy times are ahead here in the Caribbean. And as we head out here, we have Hurricane Leslie. That is going to recurve out into the open Atlantic. We have another area out by the Cape Verde Islands that stands a chance of some development here. So that's something we'll have to keep an eye on. It's going to move towards the northwest and then eventually recurve. But here's Major Hurricane Kirk. It's going to brush ever so slightly the northern Azores here, but most importantly, it's going to come in northern Portugal, Spain, and France, and it's the southern part of the British Isles here as we head on into October 8th and the 9th. Look at that. That's going to be a major storm for northern and western Europe. So here we go for the rest of the tropics on the GFS. This is what I was showing you earlier. Behind it, we have that big system that moves through the Caribbean here. Let's just back it up just a tad here. You can get an idea of where this is going to come from. It's going to move through the Lesser Antilles here October 9th. So moving through Trinidad, Grenada here, these areas, Trinidad, Tobago. That moves to the west. It remains intact across the South Caribbean here, south of Jamaica. Brings some gusty winds, heavy rains to Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Nicaragua, and Honduras here. And then here it is on the 13th, so we're getting into next weekend, into the following week. And then, of course, a trough starts to pick it up here across the Gulf. So it doesn't look like this gets into the Gulf, which is good news. But unfortunately, it does push it in the direction of South Florida and the Bahamas. That's something we'll have to... It does come really close here to Miami-Dade County area. So please stay tuned for this. And then, of course, a trough picks it up here off the Carolinas. Now, as we head out to sea here, Hurricane Leslie is going to be ramping up. It is possible Hurricane Leslie could become a major hurricane. Other systems we could be watching out here, not too much else other than this system come the 20th. So some of these tropical waves may try to hold together. We're still watching Major Hurricane Kirk out here. This is going to be a big deal to especially Europe. And it's going to cause some, impacts here in the northern Azores as well. So watch out for that. The worst of it does stay to your north. But look at as we head through October 9th into the 10th, it's kind of coming in near Portugal, Spain, France area, and even parts of the southern British Isles here. So this is going to be a major storm as it moves across Europe. All right, so I've overlaid the severe weather outlook here as we head through Sunday evening into Sunday night. We could be looking at some stronger thunderstorms across extreme eastern Ohio, western New York, western Pennsylvania. Watch as we just put this into motion. As we head throughout the evening, Sunday evening, yeah, some of these could contain damaging wind, large hail, an isolated tornado cannot be ruled out here. That's going to drop south as we head towards Pittsburgh, 8 p.m. here. So look at, they just formed just east of Cleveland here, the early evening hours after 5 and 6 o'clock. And that just spreads eastward here towards 10 p.m. and midnight here towards the I-81 corridor. Thankfully, they'll start to lose their punch as they head east, and they'll just be gully washers at this point. But they're heading into parts of New England here, eastern New England, come 10 a.m. on Monday. So there it is. The severe weather threat's going to be mainly confined to western New York, western Pennsylvania, and extreme eastern Ohio and extreme northern West Virginia. All right, so all eyes are going to be on the Gulf here. Florida continues to get inundated well out ahead of Milton. That's with that trough. That's going to be the focal point with all that tropical moisture moving in across Florida. Let's actually get that severe weather outlook off because it's mainly going to be in the form of heavy rain. And as we continue throughout, here it is on Monday. Look at this heavy rain. We do get an area of low pressure. This is Synoptic, by the way, that's going to move to the northeast. But look what's going to be moving out ahead of Milton here on the 8th. This big heavy train of moisture is going to slowly chug its way into south and central Florida. Picking up where our HRRR future radar left off as we continue with your Tuesday into Wednesday here. You can see all eyes are going to be on Florida here, South Georgia, the Carolinas. But look at high pressure. It is going to be dominant across much of the east part of North America. That's just going to continue throughout the week here. We do see a light system that starts to approach here towards October 12th. There may be some clouds and maybe a few showers as we head on into Saturday morning here. But that moves out to the northeast pretty rapidly. We don't see a stronger storm here until October 13th. Later on Sunday here through the Ohio Valley into parts of the Northeast, Eastern Great Lakes. This really starts to blow up into something here with lots of moisture behind it, and you can see this inverted trough behind it. This could be the focal point of some lake-enhanced showers here. So a little bit more unsettled, but look how quickly that moves out and high pressure builds back in. And rainfall amounts here on our European model, you can see well out ahead here into South and Central Florida. And then as we get landfalling Hurricane Milton there, just additional amounts. Totals could be 6 to as much as 15 inches in some of these areas, not looking good. And then here into the Ohio Valley, into the northeast, you see this system up here Sunday evening and Sunday night in particular. And then come the middle of the month, you get more rain up here as well. As we take a look at Canada here, we have a massive low winding up across Hudson Bay here. That's going to continue that cold front that's sparking a few stronger thunderstorms across Ontario today. That's going to move east into Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia as we head throughout later Monday into Tuesday here. You can see it's forming another area of low pressure, and we just get an upper level low trying to crank out here. Now, the West Coast, British Columbia, we have another system moving in here, so those mountainous areas and coastal areas will see that mountain snow valley rain. That's going to continue northeastward. We have another low moving into Quebec and Ontario as we head later in the week towards next weekend. And look at, we continue this active pattern here in southeast Canada. Another area of low pressure winding up across southern Ontario, Quebec, and eventually towards New Brunswick, Nova Scotia here, and blasting up into the Canadian Maritimes come the 15th into the 16th. And here a system in the Pacific Northwest of the United States is actually going to bring some rainfall and mountain snow to British Columbia, Alberta, and eventually Saskatchewan. All right, so getting into the Canadian rainfall amounts here, we are looking like a lot of inclement weather across eastern Canada here, as well as the west coast of Canada. Of course, the west coast of Canada, you get those Pacific systems over and over again. You could get easily 150 to 200 millimeters of precipitation, mountain snow, valley rain, and look at back east here, getting some beneficial rains across Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland here. These areas could easily see 60 to 100 millimeters, locally higher amounts. You're looking at 2.5 to 4 inches in some of these areas. Maybe some areas eclipsing 5 inches. And the Western Pacific here, yeah, the Philippines remain pretty active here with some heavy rain. We'll get into those rainfall amounts momentarily. We do have a new tropical depression 21 here. Thankfully, it's not going to affect any land. That is some good news. It's going to come just east of Japan. Not expected to become a typhoon, but probably a maximum tropical storm potential here. Look at the intertropical convergence zone filling in here across the Philippines over to southern Asia here. We're just going to watch these line up. But Philippines up to Taiwan, over to Vietnam, you're going to be socked in with rainfall. Look at this. South Korea up here into Japan, it's going to remain dry, so that's good. Once you get past this initial shot as we continue through Monday into Tuesday, you will get some heavy rain in Japan. But let's just skip ahead once again to the middle of the month. That's when things start to dry out a little bit. Maybe something trying to form here into southern Japan. It'll be more synoptic. But look at the Philippines come the middle of the month. This is where things really get socked in with these tropical waves and some heavy monsoon-type moisture. All right, and as we get out into the Western Pacific here, yeah, we're looking at heavy rains continuing for Japan, Vietnam here, and then eventually the Philippines, especially come the middle of the month here. We're going to ramp that moisture up again, 100 to 150 millimeters in many of these locations, 3 to 5 inches plus, some locations 6 inches, Vietnam as well, and then Japan, we're looking at 80 to 125 inches in some of these, I should say millimeters. That's going to be on the order of about 2.5 to as much as 5 inches in some of these locations. And before we continue with more weather, check out these awesome, amazing maps that you won't find anywhere else.
I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code.
And taking a look at temperatures here throughout the week, look at that cool spell up here across the Northeast and parts of New England. We're going to be looking in the 60s for highs here along the Gulf Coast, upper 80s to around 90. As we head into Tuesday, temperatures will start being held down here in Florida with the clouds and the rain well ahead of Milton. But look at this, upper 50s and lower 60s for parts of the lakes and Northeast. That's just going to continue here into Wednesday, October 9th here. Look at this, reinforcing shot of cooler air. Fall is in the air in the mid to upper 50s here in New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, these areas, even down in through the Appalachians, down in through eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, getting down into the 60s into Thursday. And then look at here into Friday, October 11th. We do start to moderate it a bit into the 60s. Ohio Valley breaking into the 70s here. And look at this heat in the midsection of the country, 80s all the way up to Nebraska. And look at that. Next weekend, this looks like late summer rather than early fall. The extended forecast from our hometown viewers, Binghamton, Scranton, Upper Susquehanna River Valley, New York, and Pennsylvania. We'll have some stronger showers and thunderstorms overnight into early Monday morning. Some could contain gusty winds, small hail, heavy downpours. But look at that. Monday, it clears off nice. There's a chance of showers on Tuesday, maybe with a lake effect response, but mostly, sunny into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday as well. Just looking like a stellar week. We'll have a warming trend by Friday, though, after getting into the mid-50s come midweek. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget, it's MeteoMark.com. And don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, Super Thanks. You can smash that Super Thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks, everyone. Share that video. Subscribe if you haven't. Smash that like button.